Hey, welcome to the channel where I show you how to put some prep in your step. Today I want to talk about the PreppinData challenge. Recently I just underwent 100 days of PreppinData. Technically today would be day 100, but I challenged myself initially to just do 100 days of the PreppinData challenges. And as I was going through the challenge, I was working through the first few pretty rapidly, doing 2 or 3 a day. And so then I decided, you know what, in this 100-day challenge, I'm going to try to do all of them. I'm going to try to work through all of the old years and catch up all the way. So definitely learned a lot of things, not only about data preparation, Tableau prep, but also about just these challenges in general and how to, manage yourself, but also be kind to yourself throughout the process. So, let's just jump right into it. First thing I want to do is just kind of give an overview of what PreppinData is if you haven't already heard of it. So PreppinData is an initiative put together by Carl Chin and a few other contributors. We've got Jenny Martin and Jonathan Allenby and Tom Prose, who have been really the ones that have held this thing together and kept it going throughout the years. And it's a wonderful challenge. The purpose behind it is to help people not only understand concepts of data cleaning and preparation, but also just the Tableau Prep Builder tool itself and what you can do with it, and exploring different techniques or different features within it. One of the, or more notable challenges throughout this is going to be the click-only challenges, where it's challenging you to really discover what Tableau Prep can do without having to go through and do any sort of wild calculations or anything. There's functions already built in that will do those calculations automatically for you. So those challenges can be really interesting to understand more about the tool. But a lot of these really help you understand how can you take a data problem where we've got multiple data sources or file structures that just aren't constructive towards our end goal and make them work for us. So right now, we're on 2022 week 4, but if you go here, we're at preppindata.blogspot.com. And so this is where all the challenges are hosted. And if you go to the challenge index, this is where you can see all of the challenges that have been posted through since 2019. If you go all the way down, here's all the 2019 challenges. And so if you're new to data prep or new to Tableau prep, I encourage you to start, because you can really see how the tool has evolved and just really work your way through beginning stages to more advanced. And another nice thing is that at the beginning of each year, usually every January, the challenges are geared more towards people that are maybe making their beginning of year resolutions. They're trying to learn something new, and so you kind of get that reminder of back to the fundamentals as you go through these. So you'll notice for every week there's the challenge and then there's the solution. For 2019, it's challenge and solution, but then after that there's the challenge and then there's a solution blog post and a solution video. So the way that I worked through this was I would do my challenge and I would try to go, solve the whole thing by myself if I could. For ones that were especially difficult, I got as far as I could before I just, really couldn't mentally work through the problem, and then I would go to the solution if I needed to. So, don't feel like, you have to do the challenge by yourself and work through it without looking at the solution, or, you didn't learn anything or you failed. I think it's really important to be kind to yourself throughout this process. And really just take that in, that understanding that you're learning something. And when you're learning something, you're not going to know all of the answers right away. You're going to need some help. And these solution blog posts and the videos do a really good job of, when you get stuck on something, you can look at them and then understand, what is that calculation you needed to do or join, or how would you solve this problem, so that way in the future, when you come upon a similar challenge or a similar scenario in a real world setting, you already know how to work through it, or you have a reference point to come back to and say, I remember seeing a challenge like this. Let me see if I can modify this technique to apply to my current use case. So, lots of different scenarios, different data types, a lot of good challenges in here to work through to really get a good understanding of everything data prep and everything Tableau prep. So there's also some, how-to blogs here on how to do a couple of things with prep. So again, I encourage you to look through all this and really familiarize yourself with the tool and what it can do before jumping into these challenges. I had a little bit of experience working with the tool, learning it, even making some of the videos on this channel before I actually started working through these challenges. So I kind of had that advantage of already being a little bit more familiar with the tool. So, there's also the Tableau Prep up and running. I encourage you, if you've never done any sort of data preparation or used Tableau Prep before, that's a great jumping point to really get yourself familiar with it, work through some of those, and understand what the purpose of this tool is. One of the things that I have really taken away from this process is just how much my strategy and my workflow, my process has changed throughout. I used to be very focused on Tableau desktop or visualization first. Throughout this process, I've become much more data first. I want to look at my data. I want to understand the structure of it and everything that's there. If there's anything missing, if there's any weird aggregations, I want to understand all of that before I ever touch Tableau desktop. The only reason I would touch desktop throughout that process is if maybe I'm trying to just double check if everything's aggregating properly, or understand if I need to, what the current granularity of my data set is, and maybe I need to go back and adjust that, or try to find ways to maybe simplify it if it's too granular. So, it's really changed the way that I view any problem or any data challenge that I'm faced with. So how does a typical challenge work? Go to the challenge index. Again, if I was working through 2020 week 1, so usually you're given a scenario, some background, you're given the data source that you can download, and then some steps to take. Now, what you'll find as you're working through this is that some of these are very specific. You take these steps, you'll get these results, and really it's just a matter of figuring out maybe the most efficient way to do it, or the right join conditions, or the right calculations. But then some of these can be a little bit more vague, and you're having to kind of rely on your experience of past challenges and with the tool to understand what those instructions mean and how they translate into a certain action in Tableau Prep. So it really does kind of challenge you in both scenarios. Is, can you follow this specific set of instructions and get this output, or can you kind of work with a very vague instruction but still get the same result? And so you're always given an output of the data to compare your answers to, or what your final result is. That way you have a point to kind of go back and make sure that you're getting the right answer. One thing that I did throughout this that helped me was I made sure to organize my files right from the beginning. That way I had a very, set structure of how everything, where my data sources were going to go, where my finished flows were going to go, where my solutions were going to go, because I was posting my updates throughout this challenge as well. So if I go to my folders here, you can see I've got a PreppinData folder. Within it, I've got the folder for each year. If I go into a year, I've got a folder for the data sources. I've got a folder for my finished flows, and I've got a folder for my solutions if I decide I'm going to output them, and then for all of my screenshots of the solutions as well. The reason I wanted to keep all of these flows as well is because during Tableau conference, Tableau said that they're looking into making Tableau Prep public. That way we can publish our flows. And if that does end up happening, I would love to post all of my flows that I've done throughout this, because that can really just help increase the understanding of what this tool does and the power of it. Because another advantage that I had of working through this is when I started on this, Tableau 2021.3 was already out. So I already had access to LOD calculations and the new rows step, a lot of new functionality that wasn't there at the beginning. So what that allowed me to do is understand how these scenarios or these challenges would be solved with the tool as it stands today versus how it was back then. And there's some pretty big differences. Some of these challenges that you'll see from the beginning required a lot of extra joins or aggregations because the features that are there today weren't there yet. So it's interesting to kind of look at how you would solve it with and without those features. So very important to make sure you've got your file structure organized, especially if you're planning to go back through and revisit some of the older challenges. And that just makes it easier if you ever did have a challenge at work that was similar to one of the scenarios you run into, that you could go back and reference and you say, okay, here's how I built it for this mock scenario. Maybe I can modify this for my current use case. So when you're done with your challenge and you've gotten your answer, you can submit it through the PreppinData challenge tracker. You put your name, what year and week you completed, how easy it was or difficult it was, and then submit. And then when you submit, it'll be here in this, it'll populate in this tracker in about 24 hours. And so this is a great way also to keep your track of your progress. You know, it tracks which challenges you've completed throughout the, you know, and if you maybe forget to submit one, you can come back here and make sure, did I submit all my challenges? But, you know, even looking, this has been around since 2019, and we've had 507 total participants. And so there's still a lot of room to participate in this and increase the awareness of the importance of data preparation, of what kind of tool Tableau Prep has grown into and what it's going to grow into in the future, and be a part of that and understand it to the level that you can even give feedback and help the awesome Tableau Prep team kind of understand where are the strengths and the weaknesses of the tool, and sort of guide what that roadmap looks like in the future. So what were my biggest takeaways throughout this process? Like I kind of touched on a little earlier, it's really changed the way that I view my process. I almost do everything in Tableau Prep first because I'm familiar with it. I can really see my data structure. I can understand it. I can use the profile pane to really look at where's the distribution of everything. But working through it, even if I don't need to use Tableau Prep to build my data source, just working through it to do it anyways really helps me get to the point that by the time I've got my output, I understand exactly what I want to do with my data, or, you know, at least 80% sure of this is where I'm going with it, this is the analysis I'm doing with it, and I make sure that I have all of my points in there to really get my results. Another thing is for just efficiency of your workbooks. This is a great way to really only include the data that you need and aggregate it to the level that you need it. So if you're creating a high-level dashboard, you probably don't need all of that row-level data. You can just include your aggregated data, and your dashboard is going to be so much smoother because you're not including these millions of rows that you're just going to aggregate in the workbook and that you're not going to do any, you know, subset analysis on. So it depends on what kind of analysis you're doing, but I have found for the most part that every time I build my data source in Prep, I usually have a more performant workbook. And that's also due to the fact that you're using the hyper output rather than connecting to your traditional files. So, you know, I've found just going through it that way, that I usually have a faster, smoother, more responsive dashboard. Another thing that I've learned throughout this is just, you know, in the beginning stages, once I kind of made up my mind that I was going to do all of the challenges, I was going to catch up by the end of it no matter what, I started putting a lot of pressure on myself to get my challenges done every day and make sure I was doing 3 a day so that way I could stay on pace to finish by the end of it. And I had to be reminded a lot of times to, you know, just kind of take it easy on myself, because at the end of the day, this is a personal challenge. It's for me, for my personal growth, for my personal learning. And so, you know, if I don't do it on a specific day, that's okay, because I'm still going to be able to learn tomorrow. And, you know, life is still happening outside of what we do within data. And you've got to remember to, you still want to take joy in this journey that you're on for learning. And if you start getting to the point where you're burning yourself out because you're trying to learn faster, just take a step back and just take a breath, and just, you're making progress, and that's what matters. And as long as you feel comfortable with what you're doing and the pace that you're doing it at, that's fine. It doesn't matter if somebody else is staying consistent with it or doing, really high volume every day. They're always outputting content. That's their journey and that's their pace. And that's okay that yours is different. I mean, if you go back and look at my 100-day challenge, you'll see even though I did 100 days of challenges, I spent 100 days of working on these. I didn't do it for 100 consecutive days. And that's okay, because there was some gaps in there where work was really, really busy, or I was traveling, or life was really busy, and I couldn't really focus on the challenge and do it and still get effective learning from it. And so I had to take maybe a day or two break here, a day or two break there. And that's okay, because I still learned so much throughout this challenge, and I took it at my pace. And, at the end of it, I can still say, I did my 100-day challenge, even though it wasn't 100 consecutive days, because I'm measuring based on myself. I'm not trying to compare myself to others in this situation. I just measuring what I've done, and I'm proud of the work that I've done for me, because at the end of the day, again, it's just for personal learning. So, just remember to always be conscious of that and be kind to yourself throughout this. Don't put pressure on yourself that doesn't need to be there. These challenges, when I signed up for, or kind of announced that I was going to do this 100-day challenge, I didn't realize it was going to be as time consuming as it was. Some days, some of these challenges are really, really difficult. Some of these scenarios you've got to really think. I think I can't remember exactly which week it was, but one of these challenges took me at least 4 hours, and I can't remember what it was, because I was so determined on trying to solve it by myself without trying to look at the solution. And I still ended up having to look at the solution anyways to figure it out. And so it did take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I didn't realize that it was going to take that much time. So just, if you're going to do one of these challenges or do 100 days, if that's the kind of challenge you want to sign up for, just remember that it is a big challenge to take upon yourself. And so if you have to stop and take a breath and just kind of compose yourself and wait a couple days before you're back into that mindset, that's fine. Nobody's going to judge you for that. Nobody's going to say, hey, you didn't do 100 consecutive days though, so it doesn't count. Nobody's going to do that. And if they do, well, it's for your learning. And if you learned something from it and you benefited from it, that's all that matters. Having said all of this, I would encourage all of you really to go through PreppinData challenges, because a lot of us focus so much on the data visualization side and the design. And don't get me wrong, I love that stuff too. I really do. But, when you really understand the structure of your data, everything that's in there, when you had to put it all together yourself and make sure that every row of data was coming out the way it was supposed to come out, not only will your analysis be more guided because you already kind of have in mind what you want to do, but you'll have so much of a better understanding to it, and you'll be able to speak to it more. If you're presenting your visualization and somebody has questions about it, you'll immediately know the answer to those questions of either that's not part of the data set, we would need to find that elsewhere, maybe we didn't include that level of granularity, or we didn't include that level of granularity because of this reason, because it's not relevant to this exact analysis, or we can pull that information in because it's already in there, or maybe you've already done a sub-analysis kind of expecting some of these questions, but you're able to speak to it much more quickly, or very quickly you're able to say, we didn't include that, so we can go pull that in for the next round. Instead of kind of having to wonder if that's part of the data set or not, I'll have to take a look at it and see. You already are familiar with it. You've built it and you know what's in it, and so you can visualize it that much better. Tableau Prep itself, I've come to really enjoy the tool. I use it, like I said, for almost everything. Another thing that I found throughout this process of, learning the tool, going through these challenges, when I would get presented with challenges at work, the first thing I found myself doing was opening up Tableau Prep. If somebody said, hey, I need a dashboard that can show me the data this way, but I don't know if it's exactly structured that way, I would immediately open it up and start solving it in Prep. And it was easier to do because I had been presented with so many of these scenarios that you kind of start to think like that. Okay, here's my data set. This is kind of what I want my output to look like and what steps I need to take to get there. So, it can really just improve your understanding of data and your understanding of what to do with it. And so again, I encourage you to go through these challenges. I encourage you to become familiar with Tableau Prep, or with, maybe it's Python, or maybe it's Alteryx. Whatever tool you want to use to understand data preparation, this is a really great challenge to understand different scenarios and, come away with just a more rounded out understanding of the data analyst process and the data pipeline process. So, that's kind of what I learned, what I took away from this. It was definitely challenging. There were some days where I wanted to pull my hair out because the challenge was very difficult. The PreppinData team does an awesome job of putting these together and thinking up these scenarios and thinking up how you would solve these scenarios. And so, many thanks to them for keeping this initiative alive. And again, there's still a lot of room for this challenge to grow, and a lot of room for Tableau Prep to grow, and a lot of room for just the data preparation space to grow, because it is important. Maybe it's not always seen as important, because all you really see, or all of the majority of people, is see the end result. Here's the data, here's the visualization, here's the results of that. But the process of putting that data together is so important to what we do, because if you don't understand how that data is structured, how it was put together, then do you really understand the visualization that you're putting together? So, just a couple things to think about. But, again, I enjoyed this challenge. I enjoyed really getting to learn so much. I enjoyed sharing it. I enjoyed the encouragement that the community gave me to continue on through this challenge. So, hopefully, I've got a couple things that I'm trying to think of that I can maybe contribute to this challenge, different scenarios to work through. So yeah, that was my 100 days. Glad to be at the finish line, but this doesn't mean PreppinData is over. There's still going to be weekly challenges that I'll still be participating in. But, again, having said all of that, I will be glad to have some time back to do some additional learn some new things. I'm probably not going to do another 100-day challenge for quite some time if I do one again, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. I learned so much, and I'd do it again I wouldn't go back and change it. I've got nothing but value from it. So that's my spiel for the day. I hope you get some value from it. I hope you do the challenge. If you do and you have questions, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to the PreppinData team. You can reach out to the community. But again, this challenge will bring you a different perspective to your process. So I encourage it. Other than that, I hope to see you in the next one.